And we are back, and we just finished watching 2021's Nightmare Alley, a film that clocks in at 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's rated R. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. This was directed by one of our favorite directors, Guillermo del Toro, with writing credits to Guillermo del Toro and Kim Morgan, based on a novel by William Lindsay Gresham. And it's also a remake of a 1940-something movie, or...
That's what I heard.
Yes. Okay.
Never saw it, though.
At the beginning of this film, we see Stanton Carlisle, who's played by Bradley Cooper, come off a bus and into town, and
this is after he burns a house down with.
After he burns a house down, right? I forgot about that part.
Somebody in it. Well,
right.
A dead person that I guess he was cremating somebody.
Or just
abandoning his old life, I guess.
Yes. I think that's what that was symbolic of. And he gets pulled into working at a sideshow, I guess.
A traveling
carnival.
This is like the film takes place in like the
late 30s.
Late 30s. So this is
right
like
war.
Like carny shows with actual freaks and geeks, people biting the heads off chickens, things like that.
What did you think?
I'm a bit disappointed. It's got a lot of elements that I love. Noir and
Carny folk
and stuff like that. But later on in the movie, there's just this sort of big, I guess, plot hole that doesn't quite fit or isn't explained enough. I don't know. It stuck out like a really sore thumb to the point where it hurt my overall enjoyment of the movie. And I kind of saw the ending fairly early on. So, yeah, I'm probably judging it a bit more harshly because I love Guillermo del Toro stuff.
Yeah.
And this just feels like a real swing and a miss from him.
Okay, fair enough.
Not as bad as Hellboy 2.
That's still the
Hellboy
worst
2
thing
is
that
like
ever
getting
happened
kicked
to
in the
him.
balls repeatedly.
Yeah, this wasn't that bad, but it definitely wasn't on par with what you're used to getting from Guillermo del Toro. So it was a little disappointing, but I think it's still. What am I trying to say? Okay,
You sound like you're disappointed and like
I'm trying to make excuses
by this movie too. I know
a little. It's
Toro.
not
We really want to love Guillermo del Toro's work, but seriously, this is a big
definitely
swing and a miss.
Yes, this is definitely on the weaker scale on his filmography, for sure. There are elements. I don't think I judged it as harshly as you did. We'll get to, I guess, numbers before we get to spoilers, because I think it's important that we address the plot hole that you mentioned.
Yeah, we'll talk about spoilers later because that's the
it's
crux
a big
of this
part
discussion.
of this. Yeah,
as far as technically, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Guillermo del Toro knows how to paint pictures on screen.
Yeah, the costuming is fantastic.
Everything,
the
just
set design,
the whole fact, like this is truly a modern noir movie.
Yeah,
the shadows, everything is beautiful. The period, the way the people are dressed. Cate Blanchett is like just a poster child for the femme fatale of a noir movie. Yeah, everything is gorgeous, beautiful. Everybody's performance is spot on.
Yeah.
Great. Bradley Cooper is awesome.
Rooney Mara,
Cate Blanchett,
Ron Perlman.
He has a small part, but it's
Toni Collette. Yeah, I mean, I think again, I don't think I judged it as harshly as you did, because I think that I looked at the overall picture with those other elements. You have really great set pieces. You have amazing costuming. You have really good, strong performances. Maybe kind of a weak story, for sure.
That's to me.
But
that's the problem. It's
yes,
the
and that
story
unfortunately does bring this.
That's really the most important part. You have to nail all these elements, and it has to make some kind of sense. Like after the big reveals occur, you're gonna be like, when you watch a noir movie, you're like, oh, so that's why she's doing it.
Right.
That's why this person's betraying this one, and so forth. This, I'm still wondering. Right. I mean, we'll talk about that after we delve into spoilers, but that is what's really hurting me. and preventing me from,
and
saying that this is a good movie.
I also want to address something that you said immediately after our viewing of this film, which was that this is a long movie, and it felt like two separate films. And I think you're right. I mean, in the beginning, there's more light, and as Stanton's character kind of devolves into this more kind of shady person, it becomes darker. And also with his alliances with certain people, I think the tone, the palette of the movie changes. But I agree with you. It was almost like it was two separate stories that were kind of meshed in. I've never seen the original. I've never read the book, so I can't speak to that. But just from what I saw, I agree with you. This is modern noir. It is probably on the weaker side of Del Toro's filmography. But I still think that there were elements of this that would make me give this movie a higher grade had it not been for those elements. If it hadn't been for those elements, I think my number would have been down. So I'm just going to off the bat say I'm going to give this movie a 6.5. It's definitely not Del Toro's strongest piece, but if you're a fan, if you like these actors, if you're looking for something new, I would give it a shot. I don't know that this is for everyone. I think that, again, if you're a fan of these actors, of the director, possibly of the novel, you might want to check this out. If you're starved for new content, you might want to check this out. This isn't going to appeal to everybody. And I think because of what you said, this big gaping hole in the story.
Yeah. I was going to give this a 4. But I'll give it a 5 just for the performances and the direction and all the other stuff. But that part of the story, it just breaks,
it was bad.
It breaks it, and it's not like as though you're just like, oh, come on, this sucks. It's just that you feel like you're watching something, and then you just feel like when it's done, you just feel like something is missing.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe I lost time during this movie.
Yeah.
I was abducted by aliens and I missed an important scene.
Did I fall asleep? Something was left out that should have been there. Yeah.
And that is nagging the hell out of me. So I'm just going to give it a 5, maybe even like a 4.75, just because it's definitely on the bad side of the spectrum here. So yeah, okay. 4.75. I'll give it a 4.75. Final offer. Just because I like it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Listen, we are those people. We absolutely, either for the nostalgia factor or because we're huge fans of certain people, we will give certain properties or certain movies a break because of our love for these people.
It's still a beautiful movie.
The performances were still very, very strong. I think there's a lot of eye candy in this, meaning just the set pieces and the costuming are just gorgeous. The cinematography is beautiful. Again, like you said, Del Toro definitely knows how to paint these gorgeous pictures on film. So for that, I think, again, this movie scores higher than had it not had those additional elements. If it didn't have those additional elements, this, in my book, would have scored way less. It did go down tremendously, though, because of the story. I agree with you. It's funny that you said that, because after you said that, that really resonated with me. The idea of this being two separate stories kind of welded into one. The beginning was kind of cohesive and strong, and then you're introduced to the Cate Blanchett character, and I don't know. Should we just go into Okay. So if you don't want spoilers, please.
Good night.
Good night.
But if you don't care, we're gonna go deeper into this.
Yes. So, do you want to go first?
Yeah. The main reason why I felt this was like two different movies because they spent a huge bulk setting up Bradley Cooper's character, which I'm fine with that. But I feel like we spent so much time there that I was kind of expecting that to be the entire setting of the movie. Mm-hmm. And that something would happen there. There was all sorts of ways you could have gone with all these characters. William Dafoe's character was very interesting.
Yeah.
Was there something there with Ron Perlman's character and the Major?
Yeah. Toni Collette's Xena.
Toni Collette's Xena, who, I got to be honest, looking back, why was she even in this movie? It didn't really, her character didn't offer much of anything, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I think she was the gateway to the David Strathairn character.
Unnecessary. Well, just use David's
Strathairn.
David Strathairn. I don't see what was the point of
I
Toni Collette.
She then comes back as the cautionary tale, because remember when she reads the cards,
and that was like another thing. It was like, okay, we have her in this movie, we got to give her something, so we're going to use her as she's going to be the one that says turn back now, or you're gonna go down a really bad path and bad stuff's going to happen. I understand the need for stuff like that, but in my mind, you hire an actress or an actor of a certain caliber, and you give them enough screen time, you want something more, them to be more substantial than just the gypsy woman who tells you,
exposition.
if you're heading down the wrong path. That could have been done by a random extra or a machine that you put a quarter in.
Yeah.
Either way, you got that same, they serve the same function. And it's sort of like, you almost feel, well, I kind of want more from this character. I feel like more should have been done. The same thing with William Dafoe. He was very interesting. He was telling him all this stuff. The whole scene where he tells him how you make a geek.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, as soon as he got that speech, I was like, all right, Bradley Cooper is going to be the geek at the end of this movie.
That's so funny. I didn't pick that up, although it makes sense after you said it.
I think I said to you, okay, the whole concept of Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
This was like Chekhov's cannon. It was there wasn't anything. It wasn't just something
subtle,
hanging on the wall in the background that was going to affect the movie later on. This was basic to me. It was William Dafoe looking at the camera and going, by the end of the movie, he's going to be the geek.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me.
Really?
Yeah. It was too in your face. They could have shown that rather than have an entire, shown how he makes the geek and just have that sort of be like that while other stuff is going on. More subtle. This was a shovel to the face. And that's what led me to believe that, okay, this whole movie is going to take place in this carnival setting and we're going to get some intrigue and whatever. But that didn't happen. At the middle point of the movie, it's like they hop in a truck. Where the hell did they get a freaking truck?
And it was huge.
It was this huge truck packed to the brim.
Yeah.
I guess it was her stuff.
Maybe. I don't know. But then at the end, she leaves with nothing, right?
Yeah, she has a bag.
Yeah.
And then they set out on their own life, and now they're in the city, and he's working in a fancy hotel. And
it's 2 years later.
It's 2 years later. The act that they put together, this mentalism act, is super polished, and they're
doing well.
They're doing really well, making a lot of money. And it leads to the femme fatale showing up, Cate Blanchett, who in the beginning seems to try and expose him, but he easily manipulates his way out of that. And then for some reason Cate Blanchett is at the club with one of her patients.
Yeah.
Or no, her patient's husband.
Right.
Who's a judge.
Which is even crazier.
Which is even weirder.
Yeah.
And she's got some plan, I guess, she wants to kill somebody. And her plan is to
bamboozle,
manipulate Bradley Cooper into working with this judge and doing such a good job with the judge, fooling him and his wife, that the judge is like, hey, I know a crazy mobster psychopath who would really get off on this whole spiritualism stuff. Maybe you could help him too. And Cate Blanchett just betting that Bradley Cooper will accept this job and go work with the lunatic played by Richard Jenkins. And, I mean, that's a big leap of faith. And then it's like, well, why?
Right.
That was the big hole. Why?
Right.
I mean, there was whole bit where
in classic femme fatale fashion, she then turns on Stanton.
At the very end, she turns on Stanton, and
but
that's
it's
another
still
thing.
not
It's like,
clear.
why?
Right. It's still not clear why. And it's not clear what tipped him off. Like, what did she say that made him, like, all of a sudden look at the money?
She said, "I love you."
And that's what tipped him off. And then all of a sudden he dumps the money on the ground and he goes through it and he's like, oh, these are all singles, dollar bills.
Yeah, I guess because she said it in such an insincere way.
I don't know.
I don't know. It just, and like, why the need for the double? Because she didn't need the money. She was doing it for, I guess,
Kicks? I don't know.
Vengeance, maybe because she had a scar on her chest. Maybe Richard Jenkins
did that to her,
cut her open. I don't know. I really don't know. And that, when that happened, all of that fell apart. And seriously, that felt like a separate movie.
Right.
You could have skipped the entire first part of the movie and just began, oh, here's Bradley Cooper. He's a successful mentalist tricking people into believing he's doing all this seance bullshit.
Yeah.
And now a femme fatale shows up and, okay, now we could delve into all this. But it was like, this is a different movie. This is complete. I didn't need his origin story.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess it's revealed that he somehow aided his father's death.
Yeah, you see that he killed his dad. Well, he didn't. He let his dad die. Apparently, he despised his dad, and his dad was old and weak, and he basically left him. They lived in like basically a one-room house in the middle of nowhere. And he just opened up the windows, pulled the blanket off the old invalid man, and
let him freeze
to death. And then that's who he was burning in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
But did that really serve a purpose either? Did that really tell me much about or add to his character? Or,
maybe
or
it was supposed to be like,
need to see that?
Maybe it was supposed to be like, you pay for all your misdeeds because now he's being punished by being the geek.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because in typical noir, well, most noir is the femme fatale bamboozles the main guy to do her dirty work.
Yeah.
And then the main guy pays for it. Usually by death or imprisonment
pays for it, yeah.
So here, I'm assuming because Stanton's character did something bad, which was let the old man die, he was now going to pay for it.
Maybe, I guess, and like and I was I don't know. The whole, like, suddenly he's like drinks one drink and now he's just like a
full on alcoholic, yeah.
And it was like something that he was so proud about not doing because his dad was, I guess, a drunk. And
well, she also called out from the first time that they meet when he's doing the act. Well, no, not the first time, but the first time he comes to her office, I guess, for recession. How he says never, and she brings that up, like, you're so proud of the fact that you've never drank. And then she said to him, what was it? We're going to work on that.
Yeah.
So was she doing...
Like they're going to work on him overusing the word never, but I'm guessing it meant we're going to work on getting you turning into a
well, that's what I mean.
Alcoholic.
Because in the beginning, she calls him and Molly out and basically says, you two have a scam going. You are feeding each other like these verbal cues.
Yeah, like she knows what the act is.
Right. But then I wondered if she was doing the same thing to him, to Stanton. By saying certain things to him, she basically got him to do her bidding.
I honestly, I don't know. I feel like if they had just made one film, a lot of this stuff could have been explained better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the first half of the movie was probably not necessary, I guess.
Yeah, probably
all
not.
Those actors weren't necessary. You probably could have started from the movie from where it said 2 years later.
Yeah.
Start from there, develop that, throw little things in of the past, whether it be in flashback or somebody's reading a journal or whatever, to explain things, and then really developed the reasoning why the Dr. Lilith character did what she did, because that, yeah, I agree with you.
That was
I
just
didn't
way too
understand.
underdeveloped. I
Yeah, it
didn't
was very
understand her
underdeveloped. I
motivations.
didn't understand her motivations, which sort of took me out of the film completely. Yeah, and it made her a non-character in a way, because it was like she wasn't fleshed out.
She was just like, I mean,
Yeah.
a little at the end. You know?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It really, I don't know. It was jarring enough to just knock me out. And the thing that's funny is like you said, they could have did away with the whole first part of the movie, and yeah, they could have, but it was so pretty.
It really was pretty. But I mean, it wasn't necessary.
I would have loved to, honestly, I would have loved if he just made 2 different movies, and like one took place in a carnival and something crazy happens, maybe like remake Freaks or something. And then,
and that would totally be up his alley,
and
right?
then in the second one, it's like some sort of Double Indemnity type, sort of urban crime noir.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
I'm sad. I'm sad too. This was not my favorite Del Toro experience. However, I still think if you like the director, if you like these actors, if you just want to see something new, I think it's still worth a watch. I think Bradley Cooper's performance was really, really good in this. He's an interesting guy. I mean, he's definitely come into his own. He's making some really interesting film choices.
Yeah.
He's consistently solid, whether he's just playing a raccoon or something else. He's one of those guys that's compelling to watch, I think. He's a very solid actor. And I like his film choices. I think he also did Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza movie.
I haven't seen it. It looks interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but again,
and Silver Linings Playbook is so
I mean,
good.
he's so good. I mean, he's really just good in a lot. I mean, even stupid stuff like Wedding Crashers. He was like the total D-bag guy in that.
Yeah.
He's just consistently good. He's consistently good. He's really solid. So seeing him was really good. I like Cate Blanchett a lot. I think she's phenomenal, but she was underdeveloped here.
I mean, she did a good job playing the
great
role,
job,
but she really was just playing the archetype. There wasn't much
to her.
That probably was also kind of like, maybe if we understood more about her, we would understand more about her motivations and why.
Well, I think they tried, but I think because of the time constraints, because again, like you said, you had a completely different movie at the beginning, right?
Well, that's.
I mean, it was interesting because in that scene where she's trying to call them out, he flips the script on her and he's like, "Oh, you have mommy issues," and that really took, like, you see her like, "Wait a minute, he's got my number.
This guy's good."
Yeah. So in that sense, it was interesting because he could have played her, but she ultimately winds up playing him. But I think if he had kept his wits about him, he probably wouldn't have let her play him. But I think he was in too deep, and his love of money and his almost, what's the word I'm trying to use?
Hubris.
Possibly. He desperately wanted to be remembered for something, and he desperately wanted to be special. I think he wanted to be more than what he was, and ultimately inside he was just that guy's son and a big nobody, probably.
I think he wanted to be the guy that took his mom away.
Possibly, yeah.
The guy that took his mom away was the smooth talking preacher con man.
Right.
So he was like, "I'll be better than that guy."
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the lazy drunk who dies frozen to death in a shack.
But I think in the beginning, I think his intentions were purer. But I think
so too. Like, especially in the carnival when he tries to jazz up
Jim Beaver's
Molly's act.
Jazz up her act, and then the exchange with Jim Beaver's character.
Well, that's when he realized that he's good at this sort of thing.
That
he could do the stuff that Strathern was trying to teach him, or give him, guidance in. But he didn't take Strathern's lesson about not doing spook shows or whatever.
But
and that was another thing that was like
another...
not really developed. Like, don't do spook shows. Don't do spook shows. And it's like, okay, why?
Well, he said when he was trying to read through the book and the other guy wakes up, he's like, there's stuff in this book that could really mess you up. So that also was like a cautionary tale. And then my whole thing was like, I think I turned to you at some point and I was like, did he accidentally or did he purposely give him the wrong thing in that scene?
You know what? That I don't know. I think maybe it was accidental because remember, and he admits that in the therapy session. And what's her name? She says, "I will know if you're lying," and she does call him out on when he does lie, but she didn't call him out on that specific thing. So I don't know if he did that intentionally. And honestly, bad on William Dafoe. He's like, this is where I keep the poison alcohol, and this box right next to it is where I keep the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why on earth? I understand you're in a carnival and maybe you're cutting corners, but seriously, that's like.
That's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, you don't need OSHA to tell you that's a bad idea.
And also, I mean, I guess it was accidental, but then he never
fesses up to it.
He never fesses up to it because I'm sure Xena would have had something to say. She was definitely torn up about him dying. So would she have been forgiving? Would she have? I don't know.
And that's another thing. It's like she didn't even question it. It was like, why is this character so developed and just basically a background character?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, it reminds me a little of remember Peter Jackson's King Kong? Mm-hmm. And they're going on the boat to Skull Island and they're introducing all these characters.
And then
it was just like, why? Why did you introduce all these characters and give them such deep relationships and whatever, and then they just all get killed?
Well, maybe it's that whole thing of I want you to care for these people. Oh, but then I'm going to take them away from you.
But it wasn't like they died in that one they did. But in this, it was just honestly, Toni Collette's character, like I said, she could have been replaced by just, it's the gypsy lady in the tent over there, or just the coin-operated, Zoltan. I mean, obviously Zoltan's not going to give you a hand job in a bathtub, which was like, what the hell is going on there?
10 cents went a long way back in the day. 10 cents got you a handy and a bath in a tub.
Yeah. That was I was like, why is that happening at all?
Early Airbnb.
Yeah. Well, I think we've dissected this enough.
Well, question for you. In your mind, what could have made this movie better?
If it was two different movies. I mean, I don't know which movie we'd end up with. Based upon the title and the references, I would say the Carney movie is what should have been Nightmare Alley. And there should have been something going on in there, something taking place at the carnival. I mean, you build this whole setting with all of these characters, and then you just throw them away at the midpoint of the movie. That should have been it. And then the other film doesn't really have anything to do with the title, by the way. It's like an urban thing that could have been a completely separate movie. And in that movie, they could have kept things. They could have developed certain things more so that it would have been more understandable. Seriously, this could have been two good movies.
Or a series. A series of short stories.
Maybe. I don't know. I would have just made two separate movies. This like I said, this could have been two good movies.
Yeah.
But instead we got one.
So if it was going to be the Carney thing, it could have been here was this guy that came from nothing, that was trying to better himself, trying to make a name for himself, finally finds his niche, maybe makes a pact with the Carney owner, who maybe is secretly the devil, because I could totally see William Dafoe playing the devil. And then at the end pays for it, and that's why it's Nightmare Alley.
I don't even think you need to go the whole supernatural route. You could have just had a good story. Not that a supernatural thing is a bad story, but You could have just kept.
that's
You
where-
just could have kept it in a
but that's
noir
where-
fashion. Like seriously, you could have just made this Freaks.
He could have,
It
yeah.
would've-
That would have been
this-
really
this
cool to
would've
see his
been-
take on Freaks.
Yeah, this would have been.
But the supernatural stuff is where Del Toro excels.
Yeah, so I mean, he does good on science fiction stuff too. I mean, I love Pacific Rim. That was great
too.
fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really. I don't know. I don't feel the need to shop ideas for these movies. I just think that if they had stuck to one setting, it could have been developed. Either of those settings could have been developed into a satisfying movie. But to break it in half, to throw away everything that you built
In the first
the
half.
first half, and just like, all right, we're taking these two characters from this and moving it on to this. It just was, that was a big disjointed moment in the movie for me. And then to go into the second setting where you can't really
develop anything.
You can't really develop it. It's just a bunch of things happening. That broke it for me. Yeah, it just like I said, they should have just, all right, this is our setting. This is how the film's going to go. It ended up being unsatisfying.
I'd be curious. I mean, I don't think the original one is streaming anywhere, but I'd be curious to see the original one. I'm going to keep my eye out for it, and I'm wondering what the book is like. Obviously, it's a book, so it's probably more fleshed out and detailed. Maybe a lot. Obviously, because of the medium film, you can't include a lot of stuff. So I'd really be curious to see what this story was supposed to be.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think the kernel of it was interesting, but ultimately it did fall flat. And all the good stuff, it wasn't enough to save it. It's unfortunate. Again, it's probably on the weaker scale in Del Toro's filmography.
Yeah, I would. It's like this, and then Hellboy 2 beneath it. I don't think there's anything in between them. I kind of like all this other stuff.
Yeah, I do too. But
I've never seen Mimic in its entirety. So
I thought you had.
No, I've seen pieces of it.
I'm sure you enjoyed that more than this.
Maybe.
The pieces that you did see.
I don't know. I got to be honest. The pieces that I did see, I don't really remember very well. I think Charles Dutton was in it.
Mira Sorvino.
Mira Sorvino, yeah.
She's the
brilliant scientist,
expert
or something.
Bug person. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, I'm still glad I watched it.
No, I'm happy I watched it. I was interested. The first part of the film, I was like, okay, this is going someplace. I'm finding this interesting. And then once they got in that truck, I'm like, why'd they change everything?
Yeah.
Where's William Dafoe?
I just kept thinking of him in The Lighthouse as a mermaid.
Yeah.
That was such a strange movie. Okay, and that's it from us.
That's it from
We will
us.
bid you all a good night. Good night.
Good night.